George Santos was sentenced at long last earlier today, and he got hit with a pretty hefty sentence, 87 months in prison, which most people would call that 7 years. I don't know why we talk about it in terms of months when it's baby ages and sentences. It's a lot of months, basically. He pled guilty, of course, to charges of wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. That 87 months long is not only objectively a lot of time, it's also the maximum possible. It's what prosecutors were seeking. His attorneys had requested a 2-year sentence, which would have been substantially smaller. Now, if you had, like me, sort of lost the plot of this whole thing a while ago. He pled guilty last year to falsifying campaign records taken or done in order to obtain support from the National Republican Congressional Committee for a successful 2022 House campaign. He initially pleaded guilty to the nearly 24 federal criminal charges he was facing, including conspiracy, false statements, credit card fraud, money laundering, and theft of public funds. And as part of his plea deal, he admitted to a significant amount of the conduct for which he was charged, a reversal of his previous steadfast denials of wrongdoing. He eventually admitted that he did do it. Now, despite the guilty plea, prosecutors made the case, apparently successfully, that he actually hadn't really taken responsibility for what he had done. He wasn't really showing remorse. He did his press conference where he got all teary-eyed and stuff. They implied that that was not genuine. They called him instead a pathological liar who is not at all remorseful for what he did. And one of the things that they used as a way to address that or sort of get it across was they pointed to the fact that he launched a weekly podcast called Pants on Fire with George Santos, which does seem to make light a little bit of the track record of lying or whatever, so that didn't help him. They basically said he's just trying to turn his notoriety into a grift, selling it in a variety of different ways. And there is gonna be money involved in all of this, but not going towards him, instead coming from him. He's gonna have to pay restitution of nearly $375,000 as well as forfeit more than $200,000 in ill-gotten gains. And so the only thing really remaining now is to find out whether he gets clemency or a pardon. He has said that he hasn't reached out to Donald Trump, but he added that he believes, quote, "The president is aware of my situation. If he feels like I'm worthy of a commutation or of clemency or whatever the case is, he can make that decision." And I have no idea if Donald Trump will give him a pardon. I will say we covered this morning on the Damage Report, there was this former Las Vegas councilwoman, I believe she was.
Michelle Fiore.
Michelle Fiore, who scammed a bunch of people who donated money for a statue of 2 cops who were killed in the line of duty. She stole the money and instead spent it on a bunch of stuff, including her daughter's wedding and plastic surgery. And Trump pardoned her. Didn't even put out a statement. And she's never admitted that she was wrong. She's still saying that she never did it. And so he seems to be going around the country just finding grifters and con men and frauds and pardoning them. And so I wouldn't rule out the possibility.
Well, she was a Vegas city commissioner. She was in the Nevada legislature, and for sure was a big part because he rewards loyalty, fealty, all those things. I'm sure she was a reason that, part of the army of people to get Donald Trump to win Nevada's electoral vote. So he repays favors in that way. I don't think George Santos has done anything for him. The kind of pardon I could see possibly for Santos is if Trump thought this was excessive, and then in 2 years, which is what Santos was asking for, in 2 years he would pardon him and have him released or commute his sentence. But I don't know also if those are federal, if they're all federal crimes, because some of them may be state crimes for which you cannot get a pardon. So I don't actually know all of that. I do know that Santos lied about having a family member who was in the Holocaust. He lied about working for Wall Street firms, lied about being on a volleyball team. He lied and lied and lied and never owned up to it. He spent the money on Botox in the last year where he was making money on Cameo and had already been ordered to repay people who he had wronged. He was buying Rolexes, getting Botox, buying clothing. This is not someone who is just oozing remorse. And I think that was the biggest part of what happened here. And he was expelled in a bipartisan way from Congress. So that doesn't happen in a modern Congress anymore. So he was crying, he was devastated, but he made his bed. And this is my one thing that I always say when I talk about George Santos. Had the weekly newspaper in that area not had to close down, that story would have been reported when he was a candidate, and other national outlets would have found it out, and they would have had the resources to look into it. But when we lose local news, we see the ascent of people like this. So it's really important to support local news.
That's a great point, Jordan.
Yeah,
make of this.
That's a great point, Michael.
What do you think of the sentence, Jordan? Too, like, do you feel like 7 years makes sense?
7 years, 3 months.
I mean, he, like what you were saying, he didn't show remorse, and this is not somebody who, from what we can observe, feels bad about what he did. And you in those moments, I like many of us struggle to find sympathy or feel sympathy for somebody who gets a harsh sentence like this. I mean, these types of sentences are rare for crimes like this. You typically see longer sentences for violent crimes. 7 years for identity theft and fraud seems a little excessive, but I think it goes back to him not showing remorse. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of going both ways, because I don't love how much the prison industrial complex is growing in this country. And I think there are other remedies that we could evaluate. But then again, he was so brazen with it. He wasn't paying anyone back. So you kind of want to see the book thrown at him. It's a moral dilemma. But I think on the pardon question, the only thing he has to offer Trump is just support, kissing up to him. He didn't really have any real power. He doesn't really have any access. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't have real wealth that Trump could benefit from if he were to pardon him.
So true.
It's really just, is Trump eventually going to feel bad for him? That's the determining factor.
Yeah.
That's 100% right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Is there sympathy within the man? And I don't think it's going to happen. That's what I said, but I don't think it's going to happen for a while. And especially for someone who showed no, he can't help. He has no constituency, right? George Santos has nothing that helps Donald Trump, as Jordan said.
Yeah, unless Donald Trump has like a completionist streak. I mean, apparently he has already pardoned the majority of Republicans who've been convicted of crimes this century. He's just going to Duncan Hunter. Again, people who just defrauded Republicans, ripped Republicans off.
Right, but John, there are people lobbying the president and his chief of staff saying you gotta do this for Duncan Hunter. He was a great soldier in our army in the Republican House. All the things that we can't stand about him out the window, but there's nobody that's going to like make the case for George Santos, except, as Jordan said, if Trump, in a moment of when they're up talking about it in a moment of sympathy, Christmas of 2 years from now, says, I'm going to pardon him.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see what the audience thinks about the sentence. We have a poll. Do you think this is a fair sentence? And right now, the majority opinion is fair or not enough, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not enough is interesting. That must have been before Jordan made his persuasive case, though. I think
maybe that's true. We should probably update that.
Yeah. Jordan's October surprise.
7 years is a long time.
I do think it's a long time, especially when like I know his lies were about as brazen as any politician has had, and he scammed people. But like Trump is the president. Trump has lied tens of thousands of times. He's told absurd lies, and he has scammed more people than George Santos could ever fantasize about scamming.
There's no question.
The meme coins, he has ruined countless followers of his, stolen every dollar they have, and he's fine. He literally is having some of the people who bought his meme coin, he's bringing them on tours of the White House. He's pimping out government property from the con thing that he did. Madness, and he's totally free. Yeah. Free George Santos, that's what I'm saying. I'm kidding, and then he can come on the show. I'm totally kidding, 7 years is fine, I really don't care. I had forgotten he was still waiting to be sentenced. I thought he already went to prison, honestly.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.